Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning, another in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Poza from the Pennsylvania Key is the host of the program, and he's here with us throughout the series. And John, who's here with us this morning on the phone?
Well, good morning, Joe. This morning we have Wendy Hardy. Wendy is an assistant professor of education at the University of Pittsburgh at Greensburg with a specialty in early childhood and early elementary education. She's going to talk today about her research specialty, which focuses on the arts and its effect on literacy and early childhood education. She has worked with the visual, musical, and theatrical arts in many capacities. She taught preschool through high school and was an administrator at several early learning centers for 8 years. Most recently, she taught early childhood and elementary courses at Point Park University and the Community College of Allegheny County. Welcome to the program, Wendy.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, let's get right into this regarding the arts, especially as it relates to early childhood. Why are the arts so important for young children, and why should arts be part of schools regardless of what age a child is?
Well, the arts are important for every child because it's a way of expressing themselves. It can allow a child maybe with disabilities or actually every child to speak in a way that maybe they can't speak without the arts. So it needs to be a part of the curriculum, and unfortunately, with what's going on with the budget and with the testing in the state and in the country, arts are being eliminated. So it's really, really important for every child from birth on up through seniors in high school to have arts be part of the curriculum and a part of their lives.
And of course, you know, one of the things that you mention in a lot of your work and your writings is that we talk about arts as being sort of like a frill, and that there's a need to have an art teacher, and that may not necessarily be the case in terms of how effective we can in incorporating the arts into regular curriculums. Is that correct?
That's right. A lot of schools are, because they're having to cut the budget, they have maybe an art or a music teacher that's having to share, go from building to building, or be itinerant, or be art on a cart. So, whereas students maybe had an hour of music, or an hour of art, or an hour of phys ed, or foreign language, or whatever the curriculum might have included in the past, now they're getting a half hour a week, and that teacher is having to share their time between the pre-K and the elementary school and the middle school and the high school. So, where they maybe had 4 music teachers in the past, they have only 1 now, and they're having to travel between buildings. So those teachers' times are being split and having to be shared, so they're being pulled in every direction, and then that leaves the burden of having to do the arts, if they choose, on the regular classroom teachers.
Unfortunately, so many school districts, especially in rural communities, are just preoccupied with saving the taxpayer dollar and cutting. And, you've alluded to that already. Speaking in their language, the language of investment or financial payback, is there any case that can be made for keeping arts in the schools?
Sure, there's all kinds of research that shows that if you look towards the high school students, the seniors, that the students who have participated in art programs or who have had art throughout their lives have higher SAT and ACT scores. So cutting the arts programs proves to be detrimental to the students in the long run. So it's unfortunate that this is happening, because I think if they're cutting it now and saying, oh, students in kindergarten and first grade really don't need these things, that it's going to prove 10 or 12 years down the road to be a big problem for these students, and they're going to show the test scores, which everybody's seeming to focus on right now, are going to be going down, and they're going to say we don't know why. Well, the problem is going to be that they cut those programs and added on more math and science and language arts programs, but they took away the arts and the foreign language and those things, and scores kept going down.
I was going through some of the statistical research in an article that you had published in the Early Years Bulletin on the importance of the arts in preschool. And of course, we see the percentage of visual arts instruction that's decreased from 87 to 83%. And the percentage of elementary classrooms with drama instruction has decreased from 20% to 4%, which is significant. And, you know, we talked about arts being eliminated in many cases because of schools' need to do this high-stakes state testing. Yet, at the same time, the research, correct me if I'm wrong, has proven that those who are exposed in greater detail to the arts actually, in terms of the math and sciences, actually perform better in that type of testing.
Right, that's correct. So for those of us who are logical thinkers, it doesn't really make sense.
No. It actually, from what my understanding is, it's that creative thinking, problem solving that music, dramatic arts, all of the arts in general helps us, helps children in their ability to problem solve, as I said, and also do problems and with math and science related activities. The other thing I wanted to touch on, Wendy, is that you talk about in your work arts and crafts. And of course, that's something that we hear so often, particularly in the preschool area. But they are really different, and they are many times used interchangeably. Explain a little bit about where we have to draw the line and the difference between arts and crafts.
Right, and I want to say there's nothing wrong with crafts, because
Right.
I'm a mom too, and I love the crafts that come home. And I would say the crafts that come home are mostly for the parents. The crafts are the little picture frames that they make that they'll be making for Valentine's Day that have the picture of your child and the hearts around them. And the crafts are more with the product in mind, where they look neat and they look very similar to each other. And I've had stories, because I work a lot in the field. I go out into schools a lot into preschools, and I supervise a lot of student teachers. And I've heard a lot of stories where the teacher actually goes around and straightens up the projects afterwards so that the parents are happy and that they all look nice. So those are the ones that a lot of parents put on the refrigerator or put on their desks at work. So those are the crafts where they're all about the product and the product looking nice. The art is where you don't know what the art is going to look like, at the end product is going to look like. It's all about the process. So the child might put different colors of paint on their paper, and it might turn out to look like mud at the end, but they were really thinking about something and about the process, and they were using their creative thoughts and discovering and thinking about what was going into it. It might not be the most beautiful Rembrandt painting at the end, but it's more about the process and that they were exploring. So this might not be something that the parents say, wow, I'm going to put that on my refrigerator because it's so beautiful, but it is still creativity. So it's a different mindset, and there's value in both arts and crafts. They're just, I try really hard with my college students, and when I go out to teach teachers in the field, that they're two distinctly different things, and we can't use the word art and craft interchangeably.
So I guess when I was in the third grade and made a bread basket that didn't look like a bread basket, I was quite the artist.
You were.
Right. I'd like to broaden this a little bit down the road in terms of what education is all about. When I was growing up, it was about the accumulation of knowledge. Today, it only seems to be about getting a good job. And with that change, it seems, in the focus of education, it's easy to understand why the arts have become less important in schools today than in earlier times. How would you respond to that?
Well, if you look even outside the field of arts education and look maybe into the field of business, and I've talked to some people. My husband has his degree in business and doctorate in business. And if you talk to some people who hire a lot of students coming out of college, they'll tell you that they cannot find college graduates who are creative thinkers, who are problem solvers, who have any ability to think outside the box. And I think that's because of the change in the way education is structured, that we're all about the test. We only want one answer. That people, students, young children, aren't able to be creative anymore. That this sort of, free ability to just create and explore and not do exactly a cookie-cutter project, it produces adults who can't think for themselves and who can't, give creative problem-solving answers to questions that employers in other fields besides education are looking for employees. So it's becoming a greater problem outside the field of education, I believe.
Getting back to preschool, obviously art and the arts in general are important to our learning standards in Pennsylvania and really for all preschool children. And a variety of art media is encouraged, such as the use of markers, crayons, paints, clay, and they should generally be available for creative expression and representation of ideas and feelings. And then, of course, music is such an important and integral part. And talk a little bit about, Wendy, how, especially with preschoolers, their early introduction to music and how important that is in their creative expression.
Well, even from infancy, I think there's research and there's just experience to show that babies, infants, toddlers, preschoolers love to listen to music, love to sing songs. So I think it's important for educators, for parents, to sing to kids all the time, to have music of all different genres playing for students, for babies, for toddlers, for preschoolers. So just having them exposed to songs, to sing different songs to them, to have instruments for them to play on different items that they can play and play along with music, have different things available for them to experiment with. It's all about exploring and having them have some appreciation for different types of music that goes all the way through infancy to preschool and hopefully continues on through elementary school and hopefully through adulthood.
And I know I'm preaching to the choir about the importance of play in the use of the arts as well, because children obviously learn through play. But we talked about music, but just in terms of movement, in terms of dance, your motor skills, dramatic play, they all kind of come together.
Right. And having things for them to play with, having spaces for them to play with, having them have a chance to explore. We know obesity is a problem. I also teach the health courses here at the university. So, and that's phys ed, I think I mentioned, is also being cut from a lot of schools.
Right.
So doing your best to keep kids moving. We know that they have short attention spans in the preschool level. So even doing something as simple as having scarves or ribbons for them to play with. We make little ribbons on the end of popsicle sticks and playing music and having them go fast and slow or high and low and having them do different movements to or look like different animals and explore and get those creative juices flowing, as well as having them move their bodies, because kids are so used to just sitting in front of a computer screen or sitting in front of a TV screen. So getting them up and moving as well as exploring is important for kids at a young age so that they can get out of that rut of, screen time.
If we were to judge what's taught in schools solely as relates to employment, which I don't think we agree should be the criterion, there's an obvious direct link between a child's mathematical skill and his or her ability to develop those skills into a good-paying job. Is there a direct link between a child excelling in the arts, developing skills that would translate into a good-paying job? Very few musicians become paid professionals. So is there a correlation between skills in the arts and employability?
Certainly, I think that you can take the creativity that you learn through the arts and apply that to any job.
Right.
Certainly, there are a lot of unemployed musicians out there. A lot of them I went to school with. But the creativity and the ability to problem solve. The research has shown critical thinking, the use of your senses, self-discipline, all of those things that all preschoolers need to work on. Sense of independence, self-esteem, feeling good about yourself. A lot of the arts activities that we work on with preschoolers work on social skills. There's very few. I mean, you can paint all by yourself, but a lot of the arts activities work together with someone else. And for sure, the music activities and a lot of the movement activities. So those are things where those are skills that you're going to need when you get into a workplace. You're always going to work with other people. So those are definitely skills that translate into adulthood, into the workplace.
Yeah, you hit on the social emotional, which of course, in terms of problem solving, even with the preschoolers, working together on projects is so critical, and that's probably, you hit it on the head there in terms of that carrying on with adults and students later in life and working together. So critically important. I wanted to get back to the so-called not needing to be an art specialist as we carry on the teaching of art even into the elementary schools, and talk a little bit about how it's not necessarily necessary to have someone whose total specialty is art, where that maybe can be incorporated by an elementary teacher that maybe doesn't have the same specialty discipline.
Yes, when I teach the creative arts classes here, and I teach a lot of the PQAS trainings, and I'm always surprised how much anxiety preschool or elementary teachers come to those courses with, either because they feel like they don't have any talent in the arts areas, or they had bad experiences growing up with a teacher that they had who said, you can't sing, or you should just mouth the words to this song because your voice is so bad, or who forced them to paint when they didn't want to paint, or someone who told them that they were a bad artist. So for whatever reason, I have probably about half the people who have some kind of anxiety about teaching art or teaching music or teaching drama.
Right.
So it's getting past that anxiety and saying, when you're teaching a preschooler a song, they don't care what your voice sounds like. No one here has to be an opera singer. No one here even has to hit the notes on and be in pitch. They only care about your enthusiasm and your joy about the singing or the instrument playing or the creating of the artwork together with them, and that's going to convey a love for the arts to them. It doesn't matter how talented you are in the arts. So it's just getting past that and teaching them how to integrate the arts, as far as how can you put together an art project with a science project, or how can you make a song about the solar system, or how can we combine a core subject area with an arts area into your regular classroom, so that, because many elementary teachers have anxiety about taking that time away from a core area because they get so much pressure from the administration about spending the times with the test preparation. So how can we integrate social studies and arts or math or science together with art to overcome the obstacles? And that takes away some of the anxiety and also some of the pressure from the principals or whatever to save the time. So it makes it a little bit easier for them to work on. Then also, I also tell them, try to consult your arts teacher if you have one in your building, or make friends with someone in the community who's a singer or an artist, or if you have a drama program in your community, and get them to do some partner work with you or to help give you some ideas, and that sometimes can help with their comfort level. So it's several different factors that cause anxiety, but trying to get them sold on the idea of making it more fun for the students, also having them learn much more when the arts is integrated with their regular subjects.
There's no question. I mean, all we have to do is look in our preschool classrooms and the arts-related activity that goes on there, and generally that's the time when kids really, really, truly enjoy and have the best times, and are more engrossed in what they're doing. So, boy, if just using that as an example of how we engage children that way. Really needs to be carried on in the later years.
I saw some young children doing a rap about the water table and about evaporation, condensation, something really a dry topic that would be very difficult to teach. It was kindergarten or something like that. Something very difficult to teach. and I was observing a student teacher. And the children were saying, let's do it again, do it again, do it again, this song or rap thing that they were doing.
Right.
And after the third time, she was like, we have to go to lunch. It was time to be done. But the kids were so into it, and they were so enthused by the song that they were learning. And there would be no way, if you were just teaching that in a lecture or in a discussion, that they would have been as excited about that. And I thought that's a prime example of an extremely difficult, dry topic that was being taught, integrating the arts, and the kids couldn't have been more excited about it. So, it's a way, and they probably, years later, probably still remember that.
Right.
So it's a great way to do it, and like you said, there's no doubt about it.
Perfect example of the integration of the arts with science, and to make it more interesting. And the more examples that there are of that, the better. I can only relate my own experience. I mean, I've always been a fan of the arts, but in my early years, and this is probably typical of a lot of younger children, is that unless they feel that they have a talent at least as good as the next student who has that talent, then it's not encouraged. And so in my own case, and this is probably the case of a lot of our other adults, they find in their later years, when they can relate to other adults like them, they are encouraged more, and they kind of almost come out of their shell, but at a much later time in life.
Right.
Yeah. But now, obviously, what is the early learning standards for preschoolers in Pennsylvania? Obviously, arts is a part of it. What could we learn from the standards, and how can we adapt them in a way so that the arts can maybe be carried on more fully and practiced as they enter school?
Well, the creative thinking and expression from the PA early learning standards, and NACE has standards that talk about the arts too, and then there's also the National Arts Association has standards too that I think people don't even know about, and it's using those together with the science or math standards that I think people maybe haven't even looked at. Like, they look just strictly at the science standards by themselves. Like, how can you maybe use I'm looking at the creative thinking standard of use imagination to express yourself through music and dance. How can you use that together with one of the early learning standards for science or math? So it's how can you combine the PA early learning standards, one of the creative thinking and expression, with another one. I think that's what's most important.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we hear so much about STEM in schools, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, but there's more and more of a movement for STEAM,
Yep.
Obviously, not forgetting the A for the arts. And so I think that's a movement that we can all appreciate. I'll tell you, the time has flown, Wendy. I appreciate you being on our program and shedding so much more light on the importance of arts, particularly with early childhood. So promise to be back on our program again. We really enjoyed having you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And that's our program for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks at the same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. For John Posa and the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.